Hey friends, just wanted to let you know about an incredible resource that we now have available called the Nothing is Wasted video series and study guide. The 6-session video-based Bible study includes everything that you need to have deep and meaningful conversations around Nothing is Wasted, the book, and all of the themes that are involved there: grief, loss, forgiveness, hope, and so much more. When you order the Nothing is Wasted video series and study guide, you'll get access to the 6 short videos that you can use with your church small group or a group of friends or a book club or coworkers. Plus, each participant gets a downloadable PDF of the study guide, which is a comprehensive Bible study and kind of a devotional series that goes along with this video series. It's full of helpful tips for organizing your group time, session questions, homework, ways to dive deeper into the material. And while we believe this series is best done in community, you can also go through it all on your own. We know that each of you have stories of pain and heartache that leave you wondering where redemption can be found. And we believe that with God and with others, there is healing available to you right now. And as you start to read my story of my late wife, Amanda, and you begin to learn her story and you hear the stories of others, you will begin to realize that in your story, nothing is wasted. And this is a fantastic way to lead other people into that journey of uncovering where God is in the middle of their pain. You can purchase Nothing is Wasted video series and study guide right now by going to nothingiswasted.com/book study. Again, nothingiswasted.com/book study. And we'll have it right here in the show notes as well as right below this YouTube video. I cannot wait to hear how God uses this series to bring you and those around you life and hope and healing. Go to nothingiswasted.com/book study. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Nothing is Wasted podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Davey, and I'm so thrilled that you're joining us this week. I just got off a conversation that you're going to be listening to, or you're watching this, if you're watching this on YouTube, with Rebecca St. James and Cubbie Fink. Many of you guys may be familiar with these two individuals. They are a married couple, but they also have and have had thriving musical careers. So obviously, Rebecca St. James, Cubbie Fink. And it was an honor to have this conversation with them. And what a rich conversation it was. It's rare that we get to kind of pull the curtain back on people who are in the public eye and be able to have really just raw, honest conversations about life, about pain, about suffering, about marriage, and, healing from childhood trauma and the pain of infertility and miscarriage, and just everything that, you could, if you want to qualify it this way, quote unquote, you and I, normal people, are walking through every single day and trying to figure out where's God in the middle of this. And the reality is people who are in the public eye are also going through these things, and they're asking the same questions. And they're seeking after the presence of God in the midst of it. And they're dealing with some very real, difficult things. And so I think sometimes we miss that. I think there's this chasm, especially in the celebrity culture of Western American culture, but also in Christianity, that we kind of can put people on a pedestal and think they have it all together, that they've figured it out, and that's why they are where they are today. And the truth is we're all trying to stumble forward as we're following after Jesus, and we're just trying to get wrapped up and caught up in the grace of God, and live for Him as we're taking up our cross daily to follow after Him. And so this is just a beautiful conversation with the two of them. They have recently written a book about, and they're honest about their journey in marriage. This book is called Lasting Ever: Faith, Music, Family, and Being Found by True Love. They share some of their story. They share some of the ups and downs of all of these different categories: faith, music, family, marriage. And it's an incredible work. I'm so grateful for the voice that they have and the message they're carrying right now. Before we dive into my conversation with them, I want to invite you, if you've not attended our essentially a monthly Zoom call, webinar format. However, it is a live Zoom call, so we actually get to interact. It's not just you hearing me on a monologue talk or teach, but we actually get to interact with some Q&A and some ministry time. It's very sacred. It's called 5 Steps to Taking Back Your Story, no matter what you've gone through. Again, I do it just about every month. 5 steps to taking back your story, no matter what you've gone through. And I really do believe that. There are 5 steps that will help you to begin taking back your story. More importantly, partnering with God to take back your story, no matter what you've gone through, whether it's loss of a family member or a friend, or whether it's childhood trauma, whether it's abuse, divorce, sexual betrayal, infertility and miscarriage, whatever it is that you're going through. The reality is the enemy wants to cause what you're going through to paralyze you. If he can't steal your salvation, he can't rob from you what only God can give you. What he can do is he can neutralize your effectiveness for the kingdom. And he wants to do that through pain and suffering as one of those means. And so we want to help you get out from under that. We want to help you move with God through your valley and ultimately come out with a greater sense of purpose and meaning. And so I want to invite you on that. nothingiswasted.com/start here if you want to register for the next one. nothingiswasted.com/start here. Okay, you're going to love this conversation. It is amazing. So here's my conversation with Rebecca St. James and Cubbie Fink. Well, Cubbie, Rebecca, it's so great to have you guys on the Nothing is Wasted podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Davey. We're thrilled to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Well, I was really excited to have this conversation with you guys when I saw that we were able to get this scheduled. Rebecca, I've been a fan of you for a long time, and you're working in the music industry. You didn't know that? I didn't tell you that
no,
on
the
you front end, but I've been such a fan of what you have, what you've brought to the kingdom here on this earth.
Thank you.
It's really, really cool. And so I'm excited to get to know you guys and your story. Why don't, before we dive into some of the nitty gritty of your story, some of the things you're sharing in this new book, why don't you tell us just a little bit about your family, what you guys are doing now, what life looks like currently, and then we'll dive into some stuff.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, after nearly 20 years of music, we started a family, and we've been married nearly 14 years.
14,
yeah. And we have 3 children, ages 10, 6, and 4. And I quietly retired from music when we had our daughter soon after that. And, soon after we got married. Mm-hmm. And then God called me back to it about 7 years ago. And and so we're juggling music and traveling as a family and homeschooling and book writing, because we just have this book that's just come out, and podcasting. I have a podcast with Focus on the Family and some shows and touring too. So it's a juggle, and then his stuff, I'll let him share that. But it's a lot, but it also feels really beautiful to get to do this together as a team, especially this book. It's such a joy to be able to partner on it, because so much of what I've done has been just kind of solo or with my family of origin, but, with kind of eyes on me, that sometimes feels like a lot of pressure, or has felt like that, for me. So to share this ministry platform together with the book and some speaking has just been such a joy. And then to do it with our little family, I just love this season we're in. There's just a lot of thankfulness and gratitude that I feel for being where we are right now. But how about for you?
Yeah, I sense a lot of fruition in this season, especially in the partnership that Rebecca and I have been able to kind of step into. There was a word spoken over us several times in engagement and early marriage that we would be stronger together than we were apart. And obviously she had a thriving ministry. I was in a band that was doing its own thing, but really us coming together, we've just seen the hand of God use us in ways that we literally could not have been used apart. And so, and even with Rebecca stepping back into music 4 or 5 years ago, we made a very conscious decision that we weren't going to be doing it unless we were doing it as a family. So we're very proactive in making sure the kids are part of the ministry and part of what we're doing. And obviously there's the book and the podcasting and the music and all that. And then I'm working in kind of the TV film arena. So I've got handful of projects on the horizon, both scripted and unscripted TV, some potential feature films. So definitely a lot of plates spinning. But again, the first priority is first and foremost our marriage and our children and our family, and then kind of we just seek that ministry would flow from that health, the health of this family first.
Yeah,
that's our goal.
That's really kind of the foundation of a lot of what you're talking about in the book. It's very honest. It's raw. It's talking about the journey of you guys coming together and The book's called Lasting Ever, Faith, Music, Family, and Being Found in True Love. And I think, you know, the principles of what you guys are talking about even right now are applicable to everybody, especially people who are going through difficult things. There's so many people who are watching this, listening to this, and they're blending families similar to our experience. And when you're blending families, you're coming from brokenness. You're coming from your own story, your own trauma. There's kind of a personalization to that it kind of complicates, you know, even just that trying to bring two into one.
Yes.
We've certainly experienced that. My wife, Christy's been on kind of her own journey. I've been on my own journey. Then you bring them together, and we were in survival mode for a season, trying to independently do our thing, just as you guys are describing. What are some things that you guys have done, just like real practically? And, you know, I'm hearing you say it's intentionally putting this family first, and out of the overflow of that comes our ministry. What do you do for that? I mean, I just dropped my kids off this morning at school. I'm hopping on a plane today, speaking all weekend, and they're like, why do you have to leave again? And so, you know, we're wrestling with that in real
100%.
time. What are you guys doing to really make sure that the kids feel a part of it, that this is you together in a partnership?
Yeah. And let me clarify, we are not doing this perfectly. We're just like kind of wading through, trying to figure it out day by day. And part of our mantra in the season is healthy yeses, healthy nos. And sometimes there are these healthy nos that we're just like, oh, that would be a good opportunity, but it really doesn't work for our family, or there's a higher good that we are seeking within our family and the balance that we need. So that can be difficult. We're just praying for wisdom. I think staying engaged rather than isolating ourselves and kind of islanding ourselves, that's probably something that we're just really conscious of, or, you know, trying to do, whether that's through regular date nights. And, you know, sometimes we go through seasons where we're good about that, sometimes we're not, or but just grabbing those moments to even attempt to talk in the car while we've got 3 kids in the back that are just going crazy. We're like, guys, we are trying to have a conversation here. You know, mommy and daddy's friendship is really important, and this is the foundation of our family, you know, along with God being obviously foremost foundation. Like, we actually need this. Like, so just kind of fighting for these times to connect amidst the crazy, I think, is really important. And we talk about it in the book, but there's this concept, you know, that I have kind of talked about for years now, just within our home, of the 6th love language for me being curiosity. You know, and there's the 5 love languages, a very, very well-known book. But for me, asking Cubbie, like, how are you doing? Like, how are you doing really, like, where's your heart at? And I've gotten cheesy with it sometimes, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, where's your heart at right now? You know, like, but just drawing each other out, I think, amidst the crazy, and praying together, even just something super simple. Like this morning, there's been some sickness in our family. You know, it's like winter. There's like just so much going around, and just praying over that, like taking a moment to dedicate the day to God and the things that we're doing, and just asking him to be part of it, but really seeking to draw each other out. I think those are 2 things that come to mind. What about for you?
Yeah, and I think the beauty of that pursuit of curiosity is sort of a relentless approach of not assuming, especially as a married couple. I think we can just learn to become very comfortable and learn to read each other, and I can assume what's going on with her just based on, you know, her tone or her vibe or the expression on her face. And it's kind of pushing beyond that assumption and kind of digging and saying, okay, I'm picking this up, but what's really going on in your heart? I think there's just so much beauty that comes from pushing beyond what we may perceive on the surface. And there's just a lot of love that you know, transpires from that. Yeah. And then even some of the practical things that came to mind in regards to how we've tried to put our marriage and family first. I mean, it started really in early marriage. I was on the road, touring heavily, gone a lot. It would have been very easy to probably go 3 to 6 months without seeing each other just because I was gone that much. But we tried to institute a boundary or parameter. It wasn't a hard, fast rule, but we tried our best to not go longer than 2 weeks without seeing each other. And I think that really helped secure a foundation in our marriage and really set a tone for the way our marriage and family would operate from that point forward. Because it's, you know, it was challenging at times to figure it out and meet up in random places around the world, and I'd have to fly home in a 2-week break to see her and vice versa. But really that really kind of, like I said, set the tone for the way we're trying to continue to do things. And we try and travel as a family as much as we can. When we can't, a lot of times Rebecca will just bring one of the girls, and they'll have special mommy-daughter time, and I'll have a special time with the other 2 kids. So the goal is all of us together. When we can't, we just get creative and make it work how we can.
Another thing, just springboard off of what you're saying, I think sometimes I just love what you said about not assuming, because sometimes I can assume, oh, I'm reading something's going on with him. It's probably my fault. I probably did something wrong, and just, I think we females can do that a lot. It's just like, what did I do? And we're kind of almost oversensitive in that. Whereas if I kind of go, hey, what's happening in your heart and in your world and your mind right now? Oftentimes it's not about me. Oftentimes it's something that he's working through, and that I just need to trust God and trust that he's going to God about it and pray for him and just be there and be steady, rather than, kind of picking up on the vibe and going, I did something wrong, and taking that on. And so I think that's something that I've learned too, is just not making it about me. It's just trusting God with it and trusting that he's going to God with it as well.
Yeah. Rebecca, I heard you say earlier, you just kind of mentioned, you're talking to your kids and you're going, hey, mommy and daddy's friendship is really important. It's utmost importance right here. Friendship is such that's a really critical linchpin of a word.
Yes.
Right there. Would you say that would be, if you were to kind of boil it down, would that summarize the healthy foundation of your marriage? And what, and if so, why is that so important?
Yeah. Thank you for asking about that. I love that question. I saw modeled with my parents, and it was interesting because we had a movie come out about my family last year, called Unsung Hero, and it really highlighted kind of our families coming to America when I was 14 in the 90s, and how we lived by faith for a couple years when we first moved here. But their dynamic, they've always had this really special friendship, and even weathered, some crazy stuff. Dad losing his job, 6 kids in the family, my mom pregnant when we first came to literally the other side of the world. And they navigated that with trusting God and really modeling for our family going to God in prayer. So that was such a huge focus of our lives, and it is shown in the movie. But there's this underlying component too of their friendship. And they would just, and even talking about the car, we would go on these trips as a family, and they would talk a lot, and to the level where it was a bench seat in the van for us growing up, and we would fight as kids over who gets the middle seat between mom and dad, to be in these conversations with them. And I think, so for me, health in family life is really very tied into the friendship, in the marriage. And I know that there are seasons, and we've been through them, where you're just in such a, winter season, and it's such survival mode that trying to even think about how to foster friendship in your marriage just feels like such a far off, dream of what you could focus on, because there's so many other things just to get through. So I totally get that. And probably a lot of people listening are thinking, that's where I'm at. So we've been there. We totally get that. But I think coming back to that, almost speaking out what your intention is within the family and with your kids of this is an intention that mommy and daddy want friendship time, and we're going to guard that, and we're going to speak that out. I think it just helps to, for the kids to kind of understand the model and what we're looking for, and then for them to, hopefully help us protect that too. Yeah. And it's a value then that they get to carry into their future marriages too, as a foundation for peace and joy within the home. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you already alluded to it too just now, the idea of winter seasons. You talk about this in the book, winter seasons, spring seasons. Marriage is definitely full of ups and downs, and there are very difficult things that people who are watching this, listening to this, that they're going through right now in their marriage or outside the context of their marriage. And you guys are honest about it in the book. Talk to me a little bit about some of those difficulties that you guys have had to navigate, and friendship being this thing you're having to come back to, and maybe it helped provide a lot of buffering for, the difficult things you went through. But talk to me about some of those seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was interesting in the process of writing this book. We were forced to reflect on our lives to a degree that I've never done before, and it's something that, on the other side of it, I'm kind of shouting it from the mountaintops, just for people to just pause and reflect. And I think it's very easy to miss the hand of God in the midst of your situations, especially the hard ones. But when you get a bit of perspective and you're able to step away from it and look back, it's beautiful just to see the way that God is just so intimately involved in every granular detail. And we just saw that over and over and over in the process of reflecting on these stories of our lives. And especially the hard seasons. And it would have been very easy just to write a book of fun stories and just focus on the highs and the mountaintop experiences. But
and there has been a lot of those.
There has. And the book is laced with a lot of fun and humor and it's balanced. But we knew that it couldn't just be that. Because as we reflected, we just saw so much beauty in those valleys and what we drew from those seasons and the way we grew in those hardest and most challenging of seasons. And I mean, it really kind of, the book opens with a story about me as a child having some missing memories and some memories that that I was able to uncover were tied to some pretty serious trauma early on in my life, and the book kind of details a journey of me working towards the pursuit of uncovering those memories and then ultimately finding healing in Jesus as a result of pushing into those things. And Rebecca talks about just the trials of burnout and really ultimately losing her voice and dealing with just some pretty serious stress and anxiety and pain around the work that she was doing and singing, and then we talk about us kind of being thrust into a what we refer to as a winter season, which was about 4 or 5 years into our marriage, and there was some unjust decisions that were made that caused me to divide with the band that I was in, and that was sort of what spawned this winter season. But then it was just kind of a 3-year season or so that was just blow after blow after blow. And it just felt like
miscarriages too.
Yeah. So a couple of miscarriages, obviously dealing with the aftermath of this band situation. My mom was dying of a horrible disease. There was other external factors going on. So it just felt like everywhere we looked, there was something that was just absolutely painful. And in the midst of that, my childhood trauma really starts kind of rearing its head. And so, in the midst of that, it was hard, like Rebecca said, to just figure out how to be a normal couple and figure out how to survive and love one another and even have enough for each other, let alone have enough for each other or for ourselves. But it was a kind of a common daily thing where it was like, I don't have enough to give you because I barely have enough for myself. And so really clinging to God in that season, trusting that he was good. And despite what that season was really kind of marked for me was a silence from God, which was very different because every other turning point in my life, God was exponentially clear on the next thing to do and how to do it. And suddenly I was thrust into this very painful, very dark season where I felt just utter silence from the Lord, which made that season even harder. So despite the silence, continuing to trust that he was good and just trying as hard as we could to put one foot in front of the other and progress through this season. But I say all that and we get to the other side of it. And by the end of the book, by the end of the writing process for me, I was able to look back and just be so grateful for those seasons because of who we are today, because of the ways our marriage was fortified through those seasons,
absolutely.
The way our faith was brought to new levels through those seasons. Because the reality is, we don't grow when times are good. It's far too easy just to get complacent and coast. And I would love to believe that when, when life is good, we're growing and we're maturing. But the reality is we just don't. It's really through those hard seasons that we grow, and God shapes and molds us into the men and women that he calls us to be. So being able to find that purpose in the pain and piece it together in ways that I've never been able to, it felt like a lot of siloed incidents is, and then suddenly I see it as just a beautiful tapestry of God weaving these things together and just finding so much purpose in each one of those areas of pain.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. Hi, friends. Just want to interrupt this conversation to see if you're looking for a way to help a friend who is hurting. You having a hard time knowing how to show up and show that you care in whatever pain they're walking through right now. Listen, we understand, and we've been there. Even though I've walked through my own trauma and painful season, I can still struggle to know how to best enter into the pain of those around me. I'll never forget the first funeral that I preached after losing my late wife Amanda in 2015. I showed up and I felt like I was stumbling through, not knowing what to say, because it just is so difficult to know exactly how to enter into somebody else's pain. In fact, there were so many people who were well-meaning right after my late wife passed away that they would send me all kinds of different things. But most of those things, they either filled my house with clutter or I ended up disposing of them because it just wasn't useful. As well-meaning and well-intentioned as people were, they just, I don't think, knew what to send me. You want to find that perfect combination of meaningful and thoughtful and practical. And that's why we've created the Nothing is Wasted Restore Box. Nothing is Wasted Restore Box is just what you've been looking for as you seek to show support and love for a friend, a coworker, or a family member who is hurting. The Restore Box is a thoughtfully curated gift box that has some of our favorite resources and reminders from Nothing is Wasted Ministries that will encourage anyone who is walking through a difficult time. Whether it be loss, a divorce, a lost job, an unexpected diagnosis, betrayal, or just a season of depression or anxiety, or really any other pain point for that matter. This box is for when someone you love needs a reminder of hope and that nothing is wasted in their pain. Each Restore Box includes a copy of the Nothing is Wasted book, a copy of the Pain to Purpose devotional, a beautifully crafted scripture pack full of encouraging verses, the Nothing is Wasted anvil paperweight, and a Nothing is Wasted wristband. Now, we know it's hard to step into someone's pain, but we also know the cost of not stepping in is far greater. You can show you care and offer hope at the same time by sending your friend the Restore Box. Just head to nothingiswasted.com/RestoreBox. That's Restore Box, RESTOR box. So leave off that second E and give a meaningful gift to someone in your life who is hurting. You can follow the link in the show notes if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, or right below this YouTube video if you're watching it on YouTube, nothingiswasted.com/RestoreBox, and give the gift of hope and healing to that person in your life who's going through a difficult time. nothingiswasted.com/RestoreBox. Hey everyone, Davey here. Just want to interrupt this conversation for just a moment and tell you this. Nothing is Wasted is coming to Indianapolis. That's kind of weird to say because that's where we're based and that's where we headquarter. But we will be hosting for the first time the Healing Leader Roundtable this March 2025 in Indianapolis. The Healing Leader Roundtable is a one-day event for pastors, ministry leaders, lay leaders, counselors, therapists, and nonprofit leaders where we dive deeper into how to create environments that are biblically centered, spirit-filled, and trauma-informed. Environments where people can actually heal. Where people can heal inside the church. And this is the church's calling and commission, is to help people get healed so they can get back on mission. The thing is we found ourselves at a critical time in church history. Anxiety, depression, mental unhealth is at an all-time high. And unaddressed pain and trauma has the potential to paralyze the church, the Big C church, and its leaders more than anything else. And the enemy, I'm telling you, is doing everything he can to leverage this against the church. If you're a pastor, how many times have you seen people in your congregation or organization begin to get on mission and move into their purpose, and then something happens in their life and it completely knocks them off course? And so we'd love to invite you, if you're a pastor, a ministry leader, a counselor, a nonprofit leader, or you're a part of the team, or maybe you need to talk to your pastor or your ministry leader about this, we want to invite you to a one-day roundtable event designed to equip you with a holistic approach to healing your organization, all the way from the leadership to the lay people. And if you've ever felt overwhelmed by the pressing needs in your congregation or your organization, the people that you serve, or you felt an emotional toll that it takes on you personally, we'd love to have you join us for this special event. You can find out more information and register for the event at nothingiswasted.com/roundtable. There is an early bird rate going on until the middle of February. So you want to make sure you jump on this quick. nothingiswasted.com/roundtable. If you're not a ministry leader, we'd love your help in getting information about this event to your pastor, to your church leadership. Spread the word that Nothing is Wasted Ministries is bringing the Healing Leader Roundtable to Indianapolis. I know we've got so many of you guys who are listening to the podcast who are your Indianapolis folks, and your pastor, your ministry leader needs to be at this event. So talk to them about that. Send them an email, nothingiswasted.com/roundtable, and let them know that they can get more information about that there. And don't delay, because this is a one-day event, and often these reach capacity. And so we want to make sure that you and or your leadership are there. nothingiswasted.com/roundtable for the Healing Leader Roundtable, taking place in Indianapolis, March 2025. It's really cool, even hearing you describe that as like an overview. I feel like I got kind of a flyover too, just like what you're saying the writing process has been for you as well, and seeing the thread of God's hand through all of it, whereas it looked like segmented, isolated pieces of trying to figure out and make sense of it all. And, it's, I don't even know if the goal is ever to get out of seasons like that. I think so. That's the American goal, but that's not necessarily God's goal. It's to, remain under pressure, to be steadfast under pressure, perseverance, right? Yeah. So it's suffering that produces perseverance, character, and character hope, as you were saying, right?
Yes.
But I'm curious, I'm thinking right now, I feel like the seat that I sit in sometimes is I've got just even friends that are going through a similar season. And I'm going, man, I wish right now I could have Cubbie and Rebecca sit down with my friends and have coffee and talk and just encourage them in this season. Yeah. What would you say to someone who is navigating? They're in the middle. They can't see the forest through the trees. They're in the middle of that winter season that you're describing. Yeah. How did you navigate that? It's one thing to go on this side of things going, oh, I can see what God was doing. I see his hand in that. But in the middle of it, it's a whole nother thing. Yeah, it really is. So how would you encourage them? What would you say were some keys to you navigating that together? Yeah. I think I love that you even said about having coffee, you wish like there could be that moment to kind of have coffee with these friends. And that's the tone of what we were aiming for with the book, is that people would feel like they were sitting down having coffee conversations with all the highs and the depths of those really rich times sitting with a cup of coffee. But I think when I think back to that time in our lives, and we go in and out of winter seasons and something, and then a season that feels more like spring, which we did come out of. We came out of that winter into a spring, and then I feel like we had another round of winter, and then we are in a bit more of a spring right now. But and so life is navigating all of that. But I know in that time, our focus really was, Lord, help us to trust your heart and your goodness, and that you can redeem anything, literally anything in our lives. And you know that, Davey, you had one of the most traumatic things that can ever happen to a human being happen to you. But God has redeemed that, like that, the whole idea of but God, like the impossible is possible with him. And, he's redeemed that in your story, and he's redeemed it in ours. And so you could look at something like miscarriage, just loss of dreams, like loss of hopes, just trying to get through that. And I remember just going, I don't even know, I know God is good, but I don't know how he's going to redeem that. It's like, it felt so hard to kind of look forward and go, how's he going to do that? But he has, and I remember in that time, again, just trying to trust in God's goodness, trying to go to him, trying to be kind of steady, trying to be there for each other. Mentoring was a thing. We reached out for help. The couple that did our premarital counseling, I remember reaching out to them, and we just had
community. I think that's really important, not siloing yourself out and being isolated, having people that are speaking into your life and encouraging you, being in church, like really seeking to have this input where you're being filled up and pointed to Jesus was really important. And then just like you said, Davey, persevering. Like after these years of kind of being in it, there was this opportunity that I had to go to Alaska and do this event, and I was retired. Like it seemed like what should have been a no, but in our spirits about that, we said yes. And it was during worship that God brought spring. It was during worship that we had an encounter with the Holy Spirit, like literally while I was on stage. And it was happening simultaneously for him, where our past looked different. The weight of that winter fell away. Our future looked different. We had hope. We were like dreaming again. We were like had this courage to make changes in our lives. Like it had lifted. And immediately after that, I fell pregnant with our second child. We now have a third child. Like God's restored so much ministry wise for both of us. Like it was just like holding on to what we knew to be true in the dark. Really, I think that was a lot of it. And again, we didn't do it perfectly, but these were some of the things that I think that we were seeking to do during that time.
Yeah, and one of the most beautiful things about this spring that we felt come to our heart that Rebecca just described was the spring was not associated with a tangible thing. I think oftentimes when we're in these tough seasons, we're looking to the thing to bring us out of that season.
The job, the baby, the person, yeah.
Right, the thing that's going to bring us that contentment or happiness or resolve in this sense of just a very
Things
confusing season.
Right.
But the beauty of the way the Lord orchestrated for us was we felt this radical spring come to our hearts, and nothing had changed in our circumstances, in our physical world. It was just a Holy Spirit comfort and peace, knowing that things were starting to change. The sun was starting to rise. There was hope on the horizon. And I think it really is a conversation around contentment. One of my favorite verses in the Bible, and a verse that has really just guided a lot of seasons of my life, especially those challenging seasons, is when Paul talks about finding a way to be content in all circumstances. And I think contentment is something that the world has very interesting ideas about, and we're constantly being shown, this is what's going to make you happy. Just do this, look like this, buy this. But I don't think that's contentment. That's fleeting joy. That's fleeting, pleasing the flesh. But contentment is more of just a deep rooted sense of security and peace, knowing that God has given you everything you need for the here and now. You're rooted in your identity in Him, and finding a place just to be secure in that and good with that. And so being able to be content in those seasons of unknowing, of the unknown, of the hurt, of the pain, I think Paul's saying that he's found the secret of being content through all of it, whether it's, he has little or has nothing or much. So that was kind of a guiding principle through those challenging seasons. And then another thought I had was, God is so desperate to heal us, to bring us out, but a lot of that responsibility can reside in our court. I think there's ways that we can inhibit our own healing, and that's something that I really learned through the process of working through a lot of the pain in my life. And even this book stirred up some things that brought resolve that could have been resolved years prior. But for instance, the childhood trauma stuff, like, yes, God could easily snap his fingers and just heal in an instant. But the journey that I've been on to unroot and really pursue that healing, there's things that I learned and grew through that couldn't have happened if God just snapped his fingers. Right. So it was a conscious decision to really push into the hard places.
And the counseling too, even the courage to do the counseling was huge.
Yeah. Which was so much of that journey was just a willingness to say yes, to not only talk about it, but talk about it with a counselor that just was able to be guided by the Holy Spirit in this process, and saying yes to having the hard conversations, and saying yes to just the uncomfortable. So I think we can prohibit our own healing because it's hard. But I do encourage people to take that courageous step to have those hard conversations, to seek the help, because God uses all of that. And I've seen the ways that I held back my own healing because of, fear of the pain and fear of pushing into hard things. So,
yeah. Wow. I love this. To double click on what you're saying just a little bit, this idea of contentment. And you said, for us, like the way it panned out is our spring didn't come as a result of some kind of material thing or something that like happened for us. And that like, boom, all of a sudden now we've been thrust out of this winter season.
Yeah.
It was in spite of the fact that nothing had changed.
Yeah.
And you're saying that descriptively, which I think is very gracious. I would almost say that prescriptively for people. Like, I remember my counselor saying, Davey, you're learning a new season of contentment. And brought me to that same place where Paul's saying, I found contentment in every season, no matter what. And I believe that's one of the things that God is doing in the middle of our trials is he's trying to help us see where there's some places lodged inside of our heart where we are forming dependencies, maladaptive coping mechanisms based on these material things that are around us. We're like, oh, this is what's going to bring me some joy, or this is what's going to bring me. He's like, man, you just need me in this. You just need me. And I love that you're describing your journey like that. Cubbie, I'm curious if we can zoom in a little bit. Childhood trauma is especially in the way that you're uncovering this and you're realizing there's some memories that I didn't even know. I mean, it was just totally in the recesses. I had suppressed it so much, and then it's coming up. It can do a whole lot to impact you and your own ability to show up in the world, but also in your ability to show up for your family. And, how is that for you guys, especially if we're going to draw back to this conversation of oneness, this conversation of friendship? As you're sorting through all of this, how did that impact you guys in your marriage? And, just talk a little bit about that for me and what you saw that resulted in, maybe as, it brought you guys together. But initially I have to imagine it probably was very stirring. It was very disorienting for your marriage.
Yeah, it really was. And I think there was really some grace and some protection in the fact that those memories were so far repressed. And I know they affected me, and even going back and looking at old VHS tapes of me running around as a kid, I mean, I can see it on me, and I know that it has affected the way I've lived my life to a certain degree. But graciously, and even kind of the moment that I really found Jesus in high school, it's almost like I lived in this parallel reality where I was just so relying on the Holy Spirit that the trauma didn't have a grip on me. But there was always kind of a question mark around that season. I mean, I have an unbelievably vivid memory. I mean, some of my first memories are lying in the crib and seeing my mobile spin above my head, and I just remember everything. And I always thought about this strange fact that there was a sort of a gap in that memory in a season when we were living in Bakersfield, California. And I guess the question mark was there, but I never really pursued the answer to that question, really until this winter season and that season when there was just so much pressure, so much pain, and the fact that my response to that pain was a lot uglier than I would have hoped. And I use the analogy in the book of, if I were to reach out and touch Rebecca on the arm here, sort of a gentle touch, she probably wouldn't think too much of it. But if she had a gaping wound in that same place and I touched her in a similar way, she would have a visceral reaction. She would probably scream and move away from me. And what I realized in that season was, Rebecca, through just very normal circumstances, would, quote unquote, touch me. Yeah. And I would have these crazy reactions and then just end up withdrawing, and they just weren't congruent with the reality of the situations. My reactions were not congruent, which was just proof that there was a lot of, immediate pain, but those reactions were proof that there was much deeper pain, which kind of opened the door to me finally being willing to kind of push into the genesis of that pain and really kind of get to the bottom of uncovering what was the root of that pain. And so in that season, I think my deepest desire was to be healthy for my wife, to be able to be in a place where I wasn't hurting her by my reactions. And then, that carried on to wanting to be healthy for my then just daughter and wanting to be the healthiest father I could be. And ultimately just wanted to be free from the trauma that was controlling me to a degree that I was becoming aware of. So that was sort of the impetus to me starting to be open to seeking help, and was able to find a counselor there in San Diego. And that was sort of the beginning of the journey. And then we ended up moving to Nashville and found a guy here in Nashville that was just such a godsend. I mean, he just an amazing man that understands to the deepest degree, the psychology and physiology of the way we operate, both, in our mind and our body, and the way the body stores trauma, but then has this radical understanding of the Holy Spirit and the power of the Holy Spirit, and bringing those things together. And I just ended up on this journey of slowly edging closer to uncovering those memories, but kind of weeding through a lot of other stuff to get there. And it was a process, and a painful one, and one that just took a tremendous amount of emotional energy. And I would often have to take breaks in between sessions of, a few weeks to a couple of months just to kind of regain the emotional fortitude to continue the journey. And then kind of the final push over the crest was when we found out we were pregnant for the third time and that we were having a boy. And something, we had 2 girls at that point, and absolutely my heart was to be as healthy and whole for them as I could be. But then hearing that we were having a boy and just wanting to model him to him, what God considers courage. I mean, the world would say that courage is, flexing your muscles and stuffing down the pain and trudging through it. But I think true courage is opening up, becoming vulnerable, and allowing God to get to the deep places in you, and wanting just it to model that for my soon-to-be son was kind of what afforded me the courage to just kind of press over that final ridge to kind of get to those deepest, darkest places. And ultimately, and I share it in vivid detail in the book, ended up just having this unbelievably beautiful encounter with the Holy Spirit as I revisited those memories and just saw Jesus in the midst of it, and saw his eyes of just empathy and compassion for me, and just heard him saying, "I didn't want this for you. This breaks my heart." And was able to see it for what it was able just to see the demonic at play, and just was able to walk away from that just so healed and whole in ways that I could not imagine. And it was radically life-changing. I mean, it was a journey to get there, but I am a different person having gotten through that. And still, it's ongoing. It's continued. Healing is continued, but that was a massive turning point, kind of pushing to that place and beyond.
Wow. Man, thank you, Cubbie, for sharing that and pressing into that with us. And I really appreciate you talking about how difficult and painful the process is. I think some people, they start to dive into that process of healing and they go, "Oh, this hurts too bad. Maybe this isn't way, okay, I can't do this. This isn't the way it's supposed to work." And, we say often that we want God to heal and poof.
Yes.
Just like you guys have said, we want it. We want them to snap his fingers. We want him to heal and poof, but sometimes he does. There's powerful moments of deliverance, but most of the time he heals in process.
Yes.
And that process is very painful. But the more you lean into that process, the more the surgeon's hand is able to guide that process and
just free you. You can become like the fullness of what God intended, all of us to be. It's beautiful.
So good. Rebecca, you were going through at the same time, and you're going through your own winter season.
Yeah.
How do you hold space for Cubbie? And then I want to flip the question too, because I definitely want to zoom in on the journey that you guys have gone on with, with the infertility journey, miscarriage, the things you guys were experiencing, and how you hold space for each other. So first, Rebecca, how do you hold space for Cubbie in this while you're going through your own pressure?
Yeah. I think what I learned about myself in that time was like, I've operated in most for most of my life in this role of pleaser. Like I just want everybody to be happy with me and pleased. I want to live up to these expectations. And what I've really been convicted of in recent years is that that's an idol, really, this idol of pleasing. I mean, there's a beauty to wanting to serve other people and give and, all of that. But it can go to such a degree that, like, my happiness is dependent on other people being pleased with me. And it just becomes this obsession. Like, I've just got to make him pleased with me and, family or whoever, friends, like and it becomes this idol rather than looking to God, and it's something still that I have to, like, return to him, like, Lord, just let this be in submission to you. But I think in that time, I remember just feeling overwhelmed by my own grief and loss, but then also seeing him in pain and feeling just kind of helpless, because I think I was trying, like just this little, Energizer bunny, just like chasing after, what can I do to fix and to help and to, like, make it better. And I think God was calling me to this place of going to him about it, and again, letting Cub be in his process with it and not taking things on so much, like not taking it on me, but really casting all these cares on him, both mine and his. And that's been a process of learning and something I think I'm still growing in, but I'm thankful for the freedom. Like, I see so much freedom on him. I see so much freedom on me. I'm so thankful for we've come into a space in our lives now where we're dreaming again, where we actually have, like, capacity now to, like, dream, and the new joy. And is, I think, because of the pain and because of the pressing in and because of the beautiful healing that God has done in our lives through, the challenges. And so we are thankful for it now. Like, and we know there'll be other seasons too, where fresh things come up that we've got to surrender to him. But I pray that we're more equipped with the tools, right? When those other challenges come now. Yeah.
Wow. The journey of miscarriage, experiencing that, infertility, it's an extremely difficult one. Yeah. Puts a lot of pressure on marriages too. Yeah. What would you say? How did you see God show up in that for you guys in the middle of it all?
I think there was a feeling, and I've spoken to so many people now because I've shared very publicly about that season in my life. Every show I talk about our winter season and miscarriages, and so many people come up after shows and events just saying, "Wow, I went through that too, and thank you for speaking about it," and how God redeemed that part of your story. And I think for me, there was a sense of feeling that my body was failing me. And I suppose I related to it a little bit because when I was burnt out and I was losing my voice and I couldn't control it, no matter how much I, like, tried to push through. And sometimes I'd just have, like, so little, like, ability to sing or even sometimes talk. Like, I'd try to talk and it'd be like a little squeak coming out because there was just trauma around that. So I think I had dealt with that with my voice. But then when, my body seems to be failing me, in when it comes to my dreams, like having a husband, a marriage, having children, moving into that season, this was the goal of my life. Like, I mean, since I was probably 5 years old and, just was aware of, like, what my mom was living. Like, this is what I wanted to live. Like, in the film Unsung Hero, like, that's what my character says to my mom at the end of the film. Like, I want to be like you. It's because I wanted to be a wife and a mom. So I think the loss felt so huge because, I mean, obviously it is a loss. It's a grief. It's a loss of a dream. But it felt so threatening to the future too, because it's like, what if this doesn't resolve? What if we have no other children and dreams of, multiple children and family life looking a certain way? What if that doesn't happen? And I think there was another level of surrendering in what felt like my inadequacy or my body's inadequacy or surrendering those dreams to him and a new level of trusting him that he was calling me to. And it's probably just more of this same idea of constant surrender in the Christian life, right? Like we will be doing that until we go to heaven, constant surrender. And so I think there's value in it, but that's definitely a lot of what I was feeling in that time.
Yeah, it seems like, the more I'm living this life, taking up my cross, the more I'm listening to other people who are living this life of taking up their cross and following, God knows exactly what idols are in our heart to put his finger on and go, hey, this right here, this is the thing I'm asking you to surrender right now. And on one front, you're kind of going like, man, that seems like it can seem so sadistic. We're like, come on, God, like you don't want me to have what I want, like you've hardwired me with desires and but on the other hand, you're going, man, isn't it just so beautiful in his providence to know this is the thing that's going to keep you right now from having and experiencing the fullness of what I have for you.
Yes. The freedom.
And that kind of a freedom, that kind of a satisfaction in him and in him alone. Right. And unfortunately, it's these really dark seasons that bring all of that out for us.
Yeah. And
like you guys said earlier, you can't, like, unfortunately, just as humans, we cannot grow to that degree when we're on the mountaintop.
Yes.
It's in the valleys of life. It's in those troughs that we're going, okay, I can't do this myself. I've got to have you in it. Yeah. And not only you in it, but you got to drive this thing. And then I love how you were saying it was like, it was in the middle of, you weren't even expecting it, in the middle of this worship moment that God brought you into, like your heart, all of a sudden into a spring season. And so you didn't do anything about that other than just abiding and applying yourself in, being in the presence of God. And he did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I see his grace on that, because sometimes I think we can think it's about doing and striving and what have I just got to do. Yeah. And I love that it was in worship. It was just him doing it. And I've had these pictures lately. It's funny because I'm Australian, so I grew up near the beach. I grew up, he's a California kid. Like we have that very much in common. And so we love warm weather. We love summer. We love spring, like all this warmth around that. Right. And I felt God lately just, encouraged me to look at winter differently, because I don't like winter. I don't like being cold. He doesn't either. It's like, But there's so much happening in that winter that is of value, and there can be joy in the winter too. And I felt even this winter of just him pointing out the beauty, like look at the beauty, like look at the trees right now, like look at the snow, or look at the loveliness of what I'm doing, preparing under the surface, so much goodness for the springs. Like there's value in it. There's joy in it. There's joy to be found. And that's what I love when Cub talks about contentedness. There is joy to be found in every season. Even if it's the hardest season, there's beauty in it. And some of our most beautiful moments, even in marriage, are when we're like crying together and we look back on it and we're crying and we're holding each other and God is with us. And there's this like peaceful, connected, intimate moment to it that has value. Like we have marriage equity because of those moments. Like there's something that is captured there that is so valuable and we can be thankful for now.
Wow, man. Guys, I could sit here and talk to you about this for hours, and I'm sure that folks who are watching and listening, they would want that. So I'm going to encourage everybody to go pick up the book, Lasting Ever, Faith, Music, Family, and Being Found in True Love. Rebecca St. James, Cubbie Fink. Man, guys, what an honor this has been to draw you out a little bit and share your hearts and just hear from that. I mean, just thank you so much for spending time with our community and being so vulnerable.
Thank you, Davey. We said it at the beginning of the interview, off screen, but you're a kindred spirit, and we appreciate your heart and just the connectedness that we can have in Jesus right away. We just felt with you. So thank you. And thank you for being so open-handed with your story and your pain and really sowing back into the kingdom of God like you have. We're proud of you and proud of what you're doing, and keep up the great work. And thank you for having us. It's been a joy to be with you.
Oh, well, thank you guys.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of the Nothing is Wasted podcast. We hope you enjoyed our conversation and found it as encouraging and insightful as we did. Now, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen, and leave us a rating and review. Your feedback helps us to connect to those who need these stories of hope and healing most, and to reach more listeners just like you. Also, subscribe to our Nothing is Wasted Ministries YouTube channel. Now be sure to stay connected with us on social media. You can follow us at Nothing is Wasted Ministries, follow me at Davey Blackburn, and follow Aubrey at ObSam. We'd love to interact with you, so be sure to stop by and let us know how these conversations are impacting you and your story. And if you want to learn more about all the incredible resources we have available to help you navigate whatever valley you're walking through, visit our website at nothingiswasted.com. If you're ready to get started in your journey towards healing and finding purpose in your pain, we'd love to help. Simply go to nothingiswasted.com/start here for your next step. Lastly, a big thank you to Sleeping at Last for providing all the music for the Nothing is Wasted podcast. We want to thank our guests, and we want to thank you, our Nothing is Wasted community, for tuning in regularly. Remember, no matter what challenges you face, whatever pain you are walking through, nothing is wasted. We'll see you next time for another incredible conversation here on the Nothing is Wasted podcast. But before you go, check out this short clip from our next episode. Thanks for joining us, friends.
But what I want to give people is a lovely, lovely vision. The soul is made for union with Christ. Not just knowledge about Jesus, not service, faithfulness. The soul is literally made to be in union with God. I'm the vine, you're the branches, things like that. I'm the bread of life. You're going to draw your nourishment from me. This is extraordinary because this is accessible on an airplane. This is accessible in your cubicle. This is accessible in carpool. Your soul naturally wants union with Christ. And therefore, the things you do, you listen to some worship, you say some prayers, you practice a little bit of quiet. What I'm trying to help folks understand is why we do that is to heal our union with Jesus. Because if you can get the soul back into union with Christ, you can be nourished, you can be strengthened. My goodness, you'll have joy. There's life in it.